Eli Lehrer, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for asking.
I'm. I wanted to ask you about. You have had a relationship with a number of pretty conservative organizations, the Heritage Foundation, uh, Heartland Institute, and up until recently, you were doing some work with, as part of Heartland Institute, specializing in uh, flood insurance issues. Is that correct?
Yes, until the beginning of this month of June of 2010, I was a vice president of the Heartland Institute, working primarily to run Heartland's project on finance, insurance, and real estate, with a primary focus on the insurance market.
Okay. And recently there was some news that you had what sounds like an amicable split with Heartland, uh, but that you're setting up a new uh, institution that was going to continue to focus on insurance issues and your specialty of flood insurance, but that one particular difference between then and now would be that you would not be promoting, which was one of Heartland's signature issues, which was skepticism about climate change. Is that correct?
That's all accurate. Yes. Uh, from on June 1st, my team, now known as the R Street Institute, split off from the Heartland Institute to create a new free market think tank called R Street. R Street is a pragmatic, small L libertarian organization devoted to, in our motto, free markets and real solutions. In other words, we want free markets. We also want to confront the world as it is and find real solutions to the problems it faces. On the topic of climate science per se, which the Heartland Institute is heavily involved in, this organization is not going to be involved on the questions of climate science either way. The question of exactly the mechanisms by which climate change is taking place, all of these things, those aren't the competitive advantages of our think tank or of any other think tank. Those are things best done by research institutions. Uh, our goal in climate change is essentially to accept the scientific and business realities and formulate effective free market public policies that deal with those realities.
Okay. Well, the insurance industry has been expressing a fair amount of concern about climate change for some time now, and they're concerned that some of the effects of climate change, like extreme weather events and flooding and sea level rise, could have pretty serious implications for their business. I'm wondering, is that something that you've been looking at or have any kind of expertise on?
I've done some work on climate change in the context of insurance. Certainly, climate change is one of many factors that insurers use in determining rates, particularly for property insurance. It is not a leading factor, it is not dictating rates, but it certainly is having an effect. Much of the effect is indirect and determined through reinsurance markets. And in many cases, the portion of the risk that is determined by human caused climate change is reasonably modest. Nonetheless, any honest assessment of the risks facing coastal areas must include some consideration of climate change. And this is a fact in the insurance industry. It's something that all insurance companies, directly or indirectly, take into account. And it's one of the many risk factors that we believe in a free market system can, should, and indeed must be used.
One of the issues that conservatives raise in regard to shoreline development, it has been certain programs where the government has subsidized insurance for people who have developed along vulnerable areas in the shoreline. And in particular, in light of uh, increasing sea level rise, and some of those areas that are seeing some of the earliest impacts, like, for instance, Norfolk, Virginia. Is there any, have you looked at that in terms of any alternative solutions, free market solutions, or is that even on your radar screen?
Very much so. I'm not intimately familiar with the situation in Norfolk. You're actually the first one to mention it to me as a particular place. I'll have to look more into that situation in particular. But in general, there are a number of subsidies, primarily from state levels via rate controls and state-run or state-mandated insurance mechanisms that encourage development in coastal areas that are extremely prone to disasters. The major reason not to develop in those areas is because under any set of climatic circumstances, with or without human-caused climate changes, these are bad places to build. It doesn't take a genius to realize that a place called a barrier beach is probably not a place where you ought to build a mansion. That sand dunes, which drift yearly, are bad places to build just about anything. This is common sense, that these are not good places to build. Climate change is yet another reason not to build in these places. If there were no human-caused climate change at all, and no naturally occurring climate change at all, building in these places would still be a terribly stupid idea. I am fully supportive of the right of stupid rich people to live wherever they want at their own expense. If Britney Spears wishes to build a mansion on top of a sand dune, it is her right to do it, so long as she owns the sand dune. The only public obligation to her is a rescue boat and a bill for that rescue boat. There's absolutely no reason that the government should subsidize people to live in dangerous places. And many states, Florida most prominently, but also Texas, to a lesser extent Louisiana, North Carolina, and South Carolina, have run and continue to run programs that strongly encourage people to develop in the most sensitive coastal areas. And the risk of climate change makes development in these areas an even worse idea than it was before.
Are these just state programs, or is there a federal program?
The federal flood insurance program, the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, provides significant subsidies to develop in flood-prone areas through the suppression of rates. The NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, charges rates far less than those that would be charged in a truly competitive private market. The result is a very large implicit subsidy to develop in flood-prone areas and to keep buildings that were built before the program in flood-prone areas in place. So NFIP is implicitly an enormous subsidy. Legislation moving forward as we speak, that the Senate will vote on in the next few weeks probably, will start to move that program in the right direction. Now, the very most flood-prone areas and the areas that are most likely to be impacted in the short term by the changes as a result of climate change, barrier beaches. Through my favorite federal environmental law, the Coastal Barrier Resources Act, flood insurance is not written in those areas, and we need to expand that. We need to with subsidies for more areas to discourage people from developing. Development on private property, people should be able to do what they want. When it comes to using the public's money, we should be very, very careful.